Hi, well, I want to give a fabulous welcome to two people that I've known for many years, though I think one of them I've not had so much dealings with, Shakeel, but it's Phil Styrlund, CEO of Summit Group, and Shakeel, who's a Senior Vice President of the Summit Group. So welcome to the Sales Transformation Podcast.
Thank you, Phil.
What we'd love to do before we get stuck into the topic of this podcast, which is going to be around the whole sort of marketing and sales interface, is ask you both to introduce yourself. So, Phil, can I start with you just to say a few words by means of introduction? Then we'll go to Shakeel, and then we'll come into some of the questions I'd love to ask you during the podcast.
Yeah, Phil Styrlund, and I'm CEO and owner of the Summit Group. And Phil, you and I go way back, both personally and professionally. And in many ways, we've, I think, deeply influenced each other. You certainly influenced my career. And our firm, like yours, is really our life work, and our life work is to elevate the professionalization of selling, period. And why I think, as you've always said it, to make it one of the most sought after careers in the world. And that's always animated me to the point where, based on your prodding, I've recently finished a doctorate in global selling and co-creation.
Yeah.
I think kind of validating my love for the work. So this is my life's work. And one of the closest partners and deepest friends in my firm is Shakeel. And Shakeel, let's go back to when you joined us.
Yeah, so I'd love being here in this conversation because this is actually a very deep, important topic for me that goes back to when I first met Phil. I don't know, probably 2003 or 4.
Right.
And so over the course of my career, I've always been working in this intersecting space of making companies and people more relevant to the people they serve, and at the same time organizing the processes inside an organization to support that, enabling people to be more relevant to the customers' markets they serve. So I've worked across for-profit, not-for-profit, across industries from, retail, consumer, all the way through, aviation, aerospace, and supply chain logistics and healthcare and a bunch of stuff in between. I've been inside senior leadership of organizations myself, and I've been in sales myself. And now I get to be a professional advisor as both a leadership coach, a sales strategy coach, a facilitator, and like both of you, spending time doing a lot of teaching of current leaders and salespeople in business.
Do you mind me asking you both? How did you actually meet? I mean, where did you meet?
At a boardroom in Toronto, Ontario, when I was just hired by a supply chain logistics company.
Okay.
And I was hired to actually elevate the strategic selling skills and processes for our sales organization. I was a consultant previously. I had built a really nice PowerPoint deck, and I was here to now join the company to help make that PowerPoint deck a reality. And Phil happened to know our CFO. CFO connected us and said, you should meet Phil. I met Phil, presented the strategy, and he said, wow, that's really, really good work. That's clearly very intelligent work. But if I can be honest with you, I think that you're going to struggle with executing with the sales force because this is way too complex for them to execute. I was working in marketing at the time, and Phil had come from a lot of experience helping salespeople sell. And so that was the beginning of that whole journey together around marketing being relevant to sales that we started together back, that long ago.
That's fantastic.
And Phil, one of the things I saw in Shakeel is that he's just gifted for this work. It was, as they say, it was in his bones. You could just tell this is what he was called to do. And part of that giftedness is he had the self-confidence to make things simple. One of the things that I see in life is that insecure people complexify things.
Yeah.
people who are secure in themselves and who they are make things simple. They're comfortable to make things simple. So I saw that early on, and I think that's more important than ever right now in today's complex world, is to be kind of that great reductionist and simplifier. And that's always been kind of in Shakeel's bones, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. And yeah, Shakeel, Phil's always spoken so highly of you over the years. So that's great. So the topic of, you've in a way sort of started to broach on the topic of today's conversation, which is the whole interconnect between marketing and sales, or sales and marketing. And Phil, and you said, look, we should do a podcast on this topic. Yeah. So Phil, I want to know why you feel of it's so important that actually we speak about this particular topic on the Sales Transformation Podcast.
I think two reasons, Phil, and I go back to you and I were together in London a few weeks ago, and we had a discussion about where we see professional selling going in an AI world, where the human in the loop will fit. And let's go back to that conversation. And I believe that two things. As we work with our clients globally, in many cases, we're seeing kind of a crisis of relevance when it comes to marketing right now. Maybe crisis is a little bit hyperbolic. We'll call it maybe a need to recalibrate the relevance of marketing right now, given the new human/AI world. And nobody's really got that figured out yet, but I think that's the number one driver. And then I think as we look at what's required in the new world of selling, it's going to take a marketing mindset. And so if marketing isn't hand in glove with sales, you're just not going to be able to distinguish yourself in the complex world that's unfolding, if that may. So I think those are the two reasons that I'm seeing. Shakeel, would you add anything else of why it kind of bubbled up?
I will add another layer to it, which is exactly along the same lines that you just talked about. I think, we are all seeing this global shift across the world within all societies of a refocusing on making sure me and mine are protected and cared for first. And we're just seeing this all over the world. It's not a bad thing. It's just the nature of what the needs are of human beings. And we spend a lot of time over the years, value-based selling, value creation selling has always been about how do we understand what the other's issues and problems are, and how do we then figure out what we can bring them to help them solve their problem. That's still valid, still true. That's still the only way to deepen relationships. But personally, I'm seeing, as we are seeing some of this happen in the world, there's a bit of a tension on that fundamental notion that is perhaps spilling a little bit over into the business world, where we just need a reminder that in order to add value and create for others, it starts with a real centered focus on actually caring about the other's issues and problems and challenges. So that's why I think this is so important right now, to help marketing be more relevant to sales, so sales can therefore be more relevant and helpful to the people they serve.
And what do you see? Marketing doing or needing to do in order to become more relevant? What sort of things? What do you think is important?
Well, Phil, let's go back to our discussion around where we see sales going, and then I'll kind of give my view on where I see marketing fitting into that. And I think it all begins with marketing needs to be the keeper of the ethos of business empathy, which is what Shakeel just got done talking about. And we just described that as business empathy. It's not about what you have, it's about what your customer cares about, which sounds embarrassingly simple.
Yeah.
But that's an epiphany for many companies. But as you know, from our discussion a couple of weeks ago, I've been doing a lot of thinking about what the future of selling will look like, and then we'll hang our marketing discussion on that. And I've come up with 3 pillars, and let's test them. This is the first time I've kind of articulated them. Okay. Number one, I think, is the notion of insight-enabled solution development. So it's taking your products and services and bathing them in insights, wrapping them with insights around what you sell. Because increasingly what customers are looking for is not just the product, but all of the insights that surround that. And that's a whole different thing. And that's very much a marketing-based acumen. I think the second sales fluency for the future is what I call orchestrated sense making. So let's unpack that one for a minute. That the sales professional now will need to be what I would describe as a virtuoso level orchestrator between their customer and their own company on one axis, and between their human sales team and their digital sales team on another axis, between, we could call it the human agents and the digital agents on another axis.
Right.
So if you think of that diagram, it's really going to be this new level of being the master orchestrator and to make sense of all of that for the customer, but also to make sense of the tsunami of information that's coming from AI. Because no longer is sales struggling with a lack of information. Now we're drowning in it. Yeah. So the real work is the so what? What do we do with all this? What does it mean and how do we execute that? And that's what I call number 2, orchestrated sense making. And then the third is what I call value storytelling. It's really value articulation wrapped in a narrative. It's this ability to tell structured stories and in that embed your value proposition, but do it in a way that's compelling, that's interesting, and that also shows how you're incorporating what's working in other places. Because one of the things we go back to that customers continually want to know, and I know it's validated a lot by your research, Phil, tell me what's working somewhere else. And that needs to be the center of the story. So I think these 3 pillars of insight-enabled solution development, orchestrated sense making, and value storytelling are kind of the 3 pillars of where things are going. So now back to your question, where does marketing fit in all of that? Marketing needs to be the partner for insights, the orchestration partner, and the storytelling partner. They need to be the story makers so sales can be the storytellers. Because marketing now needs to be kind of the epicenter, the fuel rod, if you will, for sales. So they're better informed, they're more strategically persuasive, that they're involved more earlier in deals, and they can bring insights to differentiate themselves. Now, that's a mouthful, but that's why marketing matters more than ever right now. So let me push the pause button there. Shakeel, given those 3 pillars, anything you'd add from your perspective to those 3?
Yeah, I think you've hit all the right 3, so I'm not going to add anything. I'm just going to perhaps put on this layer or blanket to make it maybe simpler, more accessible. When I think about if I was in a marketing role right now, the one that really strikes it for me is when you talk about sense making. From a philosophical, intellectual perspective, before you get to sense making, you have to get to curiosity.
Right.
So much is changing for our for customers in general, for their salespeople that they support on an ongoing basis. So just to support all the engines and pillars that Phil just talked about, marketing has to remind themselves that they have to build processes for structured curiosity so they can stay on top of what is changing for the customer segments and industries that their salespeople serve. We've got 3 language dialects. We've got the customer language dialect, which is relevant to whatever company and industry they're in. You've got the sales dialect, and you've got the marketing dialect. Marketing has to take ownership of translating all of that into common language. And that common language has to be centered on the customer dialect.
Yeah.
So marketing can own a process of ongoing curiosity of asking questions from sales and from their own market research. What matters to customers in this segment, in this industry right now? Bring that in through the organization back to say, based on what's important right now in the customer's language, what do we have that's relevant? Product, insights, capabilities, all of that. Let's turn that into the value storytelling that Phil talked about, and then give that back to sales so they can tell the story to the customer and put that in our brand communication, our messaging, so the dialects are aligned and we're speaking the same language. That's my view from a mechanical process standpoint.
Earlier, you sort of kind of suggested that you felt that marketing was in some kind of crisis situation. Crisis may not be the right word, but finding it difficult in this world, to find relevance. What is it that's making you call that out at this particular point in time? I don't know who'd like to take that question. Whether it should.
Why don't you open up with that, and I'll kind of build on it.
Yeah, it comes back a little bit to what I said at the opening of the call. It's just a perfect alignment, and it's not perfect because it's that's a difficult time.
Yeah,
There's a general tendency in business, in sales, and in marketing to start first with what do we want the world to know about us?
Right.
What do we want from the world as far as, we want a customer to make a decision to choose our product over competitors. And so that's a general orientation. What do we want from the world? Now let's figure out how to go to the world and get them to do what we want. So that's just a general thing that is stuck in business today. At the same time, you have this dynamic in the world today that's legitimizing this idea of me first.
Right.
There was a time, it's always been me first, but there was a period of time where it was, let's fight that instinct of me first and let's really care about the other. But I think over the last several years, we've seen a legitimization of, no, me first is okay. And here's why it's okay. And so to me, that's why there's a bit of a crisis, might be the strong word, but there's this idea that it's okay to focus on us, which makes it really more important for folks like us to make sure that we encourage those folks to take that process, put that process in place to know it should be about them first. And here's how you make it about them first.
Yeah.
So the crisis that, for lack of a better word, is the need to reverse the polarity of the mindset, as Shakeel just talked about. Instead of here's what we want to bring out to the world, is what does the world seek from us? What do our customers need from us? So it's a fundamental kind of reversed polarity of how traditional marketing has been done in the past. And so, Shakeel, we opened up with the first ethos of business empathy. I think the second core ethos is chronic curiosity, back to what Shakeel talked about. This notion of being structurally curious about what's going on in your customer's business, and be careful about certainty. One of the things we talk about at the Summit Group is one of the fluencies for the future is to have curiosity over certainty. Be careful of being too certain about things, because it can be a cruel imposter right now, given the pace of the world, if that makes sense.
I'd like to come back to the whole topic of AI, because we talked about this as sort of, you brought it into conversation sort of earlier on. And to what extent do you think AI is making it more or less difficult for people in a marketing function to kind of get to where you think they need to get to? But I wonder how much of the challenges that marketing face are caused by the system in which they have to operate, meaning that this focus on me first or product first could be influenced by the way that companies organize their P&L, being very perhaps product focused and short term. And we know that it takes a long time to build relationships with customers, but under pressure to get short-term results sometimes drives short-term thinking, where the focus is, how many leads can we create? How many deals can we close? Which is, I guess, the domain of the sales teams, whereas marketing is, yes, it is about lead generation, of course, and you want good qualified leads coming into the business to help you close your deals, but actually it's also about building the business for the future, which is a longer term. So you mentioned the word tension earlier on. There's a sort of tension between that. So sorry, long question. But I suppose I'm getting to this topic of relevance, and how much of that is perhaps caused by the system in which marketing
It
teams
is 100% caused by the system.
Right.
And I would say that's absolutely right. There's this focus from the top down on let's drive results in the short term. So that turns into let's drive close sales in the short term. That turns into how fast can we get them interested in our product in the short term.
Yeah.
But I recently came across a quote that I think is so relevant to this idea of this tension you described. Phil, you're much more read than I am, but F. Scott Fitzgerald, many, many years ago, had this wonderful quote where he said, the true measure of an intelligent mind is the ability to hold two opposing forces and
Yep.
function at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Yes, short term, we want long term results. Long term results requires you to be a little bit more measured and take your time to learn, understand, know that you may not close the deal today, but maybe it might be next 6 months from now or next year. But look, we need short-term results. Money makes the world go round, and that's how all our systems are organized. So I don't suggest we abandon short-term results. I suggest that there is a path to doing both at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think Phil and I both believe that relevance and processes for relevance are your best path to balancing both short-term and long-term results.
Yeah.
So two thoughts just to add on to that. One is that strategic selling is no longer about pitching. It's about how you are impacting your customer's business case, as I like to call BMI, business model impact.
Yeah.
And to do that, increasingly, again, we're going to need insights, provocative perspectives of what's working in other places, very much industry specific narratives, again, back to that relevant storytelling, and then a new level of value frameworks to organize our thinking. So I think that's one thing. I think the other one is so much time is being spent now, as in the early days of AI, talking about how we're going to use agentics and how we're going to program the sales agents to sell and to research. But maybe the more important question is, what about the buying agents?
Mhm.
How are they going to show up? And
Yeah.
how are buyers going to change how they buy in an AI world? I'm not seeing enough about that right now. And that's part of that reverse polarity thinking that Shakeel mentioned earlier. That's really the question, is how are buyers going to use AI, and how will that impact our future?
Yeah.
That to me is the really fun question to wrestle with right now.
Can I dive in on something there? Because I think it, again, addresses the discussion. We're all talking about AI quite a bit. And of course, it is massively disruptive. And there's been so much conversation about how we leverage AI in sales and in buying today. But if you start with the fundamental principles of how do I understand more about them and what matters to them, and then you look at AI,
Yeah.
you can see how AI can enable you to learn faster, to spend more time thinking more deeply about them and their issues than you could before AI.
Yeah.
And so if you start with philosophically, emotionally, intellectually, the right idea, which is let me understand them, then you see AI as a tool,
Yeah.
as a mechanism, as a productivity mechanism to help you get faster, smarter, more relevant, more quickly. And so I see it. That's how I see AI, as being the opportunity for it to be disruptive.
Well, just to share with you that, and of course, I'll come back to some of the questions we need to cover as well on the list, but we're at the final stages of completing, Phil, I spoke to you about this when we met, the Global Research Project. And one of the questions we've been asking, and the research is with buyers, so it's not with sellers, it's with buyers getting their perspectives on how do customers want to be sold to. And one of the big concerns that buyers have is or it's not concern, but predictions that they have, which you might be interested to know about, is that AI will actually dumb down salesmanship, because salespeople are going to become too reliant on AI, and you can spot an AI generated email a mile away or a LinkedIn post a mile away. You can see it coming. And as soon as you start to suspect that this is not totally real, you begin to question its veracity. It's the source of the truth. So it's ironic, isn't it, that AI is there as a tool to, coming back to your insight, tool to generate insights. Of course, there's no reason why anyone can't leverage AI to help give more insights. There's no excuse for not doing it. So in that sense, we should be getting smarter. Yeah, we should be getting smarter because we've got great tools that we can use. But we all know that salespeople are lazy and they want to take the shortest cut to getting stuff done. They're under a lot of time pressure. So I'm being a bit provocative myself here, perhaps. So I just find it very interesting that buyers are becoming more in tune to the way salespeople are using AI to generate insight. And it's an extra layer of screening that they will be doing when they start to evaluate a professional approach. Don't know what you think about that.
It comes back to that same thing we talked about earlier. If you are focused in your selling on getting them to do what you want in a limited amount of time, then you're going to take that approach of, let me be lazy and do this quickly in a way to produce the proposal to get the result I want in a short period of time. But if you actually believe the other thing that we talked about, which is being of service and solving an issue or solving a problem, then you look at AI very differently, which is, does it allow me to be better, more relevant, more in tune? I mean, a simple practical example is, don't make AI about creating great content fast. Make AI about asking better questions. So if you can use the tool to ask more relevant questions more quickly, do the research, help format questions, but ultimately you still come to a customer conversation where you ask those questions, you hear those answers, and look, with permission, even hit an AI recording device as you ask really good questions to get really good answers back. Let the AI recording device record it and then have it organize the conversation in a way that is now relevant. It's real and it's relevant, not made up. It's a real conversation, asking real questions, and it organizes the content. That's an example of how salespeople can use that to get smarter and more relevant and resist the temptation to get lazy. It will make it easier. So it does improve your work-life balance and productivity and all those things, but you're using it also to get smarter.
On a personal level, Phil, your question brings up a great point, because I think there's a rise of what I call pseudo expertise. And people are using AI to simulate expertise. And so now we ask the different question, which is, how do we develop wise people, not just smart people? Intelligence will be a commodity, but wisdom is going to be something that people will be deeply attracted to. And that only comes with lived experience. And I always say you can tell by the third question when you're talking to someone if they actually know what they're talking about. Okay.
Very good. Well, moving on to the question topic, I have another question for you, which is, how do you see marketing and strategic sellers working practically more closely together, to bridge some of the gaps we've been talking about?
Practically, I can jump in, Phil, if you like.
Please.
So, I mean, I'll just tell you how we're doing it with certain clients and organizations. If they could at least get them singing off the same set of frameworks, or as we say, singing off the same song sheet. But if we can get them to understand, 3 or 4 very simple frameworks, which are common thinking. What's the customer need? What do they care about? What does sales think? What do they care about serving the customer that serves the customer? And then what is it that we bring? That's pretty a common language, a set of frameworks to be thinking about. If you can get sales and marketing to be reflecting on the questions from those kinds of frameworks, and then come together in a conversation in small groups to work through a facilitated dialogue to answer those questions, And then the frameworks don't matter anymore. It's the conversation that we're having. But then the
Yeah.
framework come back in to organize the conversation. And then you've got something that has been co-created by sales and marketing, aligned to customer issues, challenges, pain points.
Yeah.
I think that's the most practical thing I've seen to at least start the collaboration. And then after that, it says, okay, based on this common understanding we have, this co-created framework we have of going to market with our customers, what is it that marketing you can do to execute against this? And what is it that sales we can do to then execute against this? I think that's how it starts.
I think that is a good start. And I'll just point to two practices that I've seen some of our clients use that is making a significant difference. One is creating industry specific insight platforms. So for example, at 3M, they'll look at each of their industry segments, from industrial to healthcare to aerospace to whatever it might be. And in each of these industries, what we tend to find is that there's generally 3 to 5 common careabouts, is a word we use at the Summit Group, or issues that are permeating that industry. So what we see smart companies doing is looking at that industry and saying, what are those 3 to 5 major issues? And let's create a point of view and let's bring some insights because they're impacting everybody and do that proactively. So in many ways, they're creating their own think tanks that they're bringing to their customers around their industry. And that's gaining mind share in unusually strong ways. Because again, customers are hungry for, tell me what's going on in my industry and what are other companies doing about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it really makes sense. And so I think you're talking about a particular framework that's being applied to the different divisions, which you've started to describe. But the application of the framework would differ according to different kind of divisions. And through that process of collaboration, that you have seen marketing and sales working much more closely together than in completely separate silos. So the key is the framework in a sense. The framework is the language to the way in which sales and marketing work together.
And that's where marketing can become kind of that industry think tank that you can then bring to create these narratives, which I mentioned earlier, but they have to be specific and relevant, not generalized and ethereal. And the second practice that I've seen the best do differently is to really get marketing to help prioritize customers. What we see smart companies doing is not asking, how do we close this deal? But a higher order question, is this customer worthy of our investment? And one of our customers has kind of codified their customers into 3 buckets. Number one is transformational customers. These are customers that are so much more than just trying to gain revenue. They want to overinvest in these customers because they're the best and brightest in their industry segment, and you get better and smarter by working with them. So those are the transformationals. In the middle are the transitionals. These are customers that are looking for insights from you, the supplier, looking for roadmaps, looking for value, and will pay for it. They're looking for direction. And then the third archetype is what we all know as the transactionals. It doesn't matter what you bring to them. They really don't care. It's just about price, and they'll always be there. But marketing can really help prioritize and bring some higher level thinking, because what we see is that depth beats width. Going deeper with more relevant customers beats trying to solve world hunger for everybody. Not all customers are created equal, and not all customers, as one of our clients said, are investment worthy. I love that word.
I mean, one of the, just to sort of add to the conversation here, but one of the, I'm sure you've experienced as well, conversations that we often hear with salespeople is that they're quite critical of the quality of opportunity that's being generated by marketing. I overheard a group of them talking the other day about the fact some of it's to do with KPIs. The marketing department is simply KPI'd on how many perhaps leads that can be generated. There's no real, it's quite transactional actually when you start to look at your three different types. And so there's no real motivation for them to actually get a sort of a higher level of thinking into the way in which they start to really create messages that are relevant to your point earlier on. With the result being that, yes, they've hit all their KPIs because of leads generated, but the sales team don't accept the leads because they know that the leads that are being created are completely irrelevant.
Exactly.
The kind of conversations they want to have.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's not it's not a simple answer to this, but if
It's
you
not-
layered onto the KPI of generating leads and
Yeah.
say for each lead we generate, here's our relevance hypothesis on how you might have a conversation in the
Yeah.
first 15, 30 seconds, that is a high likelihood of you being able to move the conversation forward. Now we're talking, right? So yeah, don't disregard the KPI on the lead, because that's a starting point. But
Yeah.
layer in something into that with
Yeah.
that lead that allows you to have a relevant conversation out of the gate.
Yeah.
Because maybe there is value there, but if a salesperson comes at it from their perspective,
Yeah.
they may not be saying the right things up front.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they may not have the knowledge about the customer up front.
Yeah.
And they may ask questions that they should already know the answer to if
Yeah.
in the lead discovery process they got additional insights that
Yeah.
help create a relevant conversation at the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that one of the biggest challenges that salespeople are facing in the market today is one of kind of generating new opportunities? Is the market tough out there, and therefore they really do need marketing to step up? Is that part of what you're observing, or not?
Yeah, I think they need marketing again to bring them the narratives and the use cases that are more provocative, because in many cases, the greatest competition is status quo of a customer doing nothing right now because they're paralyzed by complexity.
Yeah.
Okay. What's that new word? Banny? Isn't that the new word for VUCA? Right?
Yes, that's right. I've forgotten what they stand for, but I was told the other day.
I think it's brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible is the new VUCA. Well, things have become so incomprehensible that it has paralyzed many customers, and they're just choosing often to do nothing. And this is where marketing can help sales be more structurally provocative.
Yeah.
Here's the art of the possible, and here's what others are doing, and show them how to do it.
Yeah, I was going to say there's to simplify it one more time, is that it's back to that AI conversation. The quick and easy purchases will be automated. They're easy. They're no problem. They'll get done. They're not going to create any issues. Let's imagine that, let's say that 60% of the transactions of renewables that a company needs are those, right?
Yeah.
But then there's the others, which are much more complex.
Yeah.
Those decisions are getting increasingly complex. And what we're seeing from the, we're not helping salespeople that are involved in simple sales processes. We're working with salespeople that are involved in complex sales processes.
Yeah.
What we're seeing from the buyer side on those big, complex purchases, and it may not be a dollar-driven thing, it just may be on another risk level, that there is required much more internal consensus on buying.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what that means is that salespeople have to get better and better on consensus selling inside their customer organizations. In order for them to do that, they have to meet and talk to more people inside the customer organizations. That's hard to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So marketing can help them. They can help them by saying, hey, here is what, chief medical officers care about in an organization. Here is what the head of the pharmacy might care of in a healthcare organization. Here's what your head of manufacturing and industrial organization might care about. And so feeding them those ideas to help them have a more relevant conversation faster, I think is the way of helping them build this relevance across the spectrum of stakeholders in the customer buying organization.
And do you see, I mean, there's the term sort of account-based marketing as well, which we can talk about. I mean, because you've got, on the one hand, you've got the generic what suits an industry type of framework, which we talked about earlier on with the 3M example. But on the other hand, you've got the very specific account-based marketing that's very company focused, and each individual, like you were saying, within the consensus making decision-making process are individuals in their own right. They've got their, yes.
Absolutely.
How do you get to the,
That's exactly it. The more we can empower empower and enable
Yeah.
the account manager to have more conversations inside an organization,
yeah,
gather the insights from the individual people as you just
Yeah.
described,
Right.
take those insights back into a marketing organization that's interested in hearing about it.
yeah,
But we'll not only just hear about it, we'll do something with that insight and turn it back into something that then sales can go back to whatever relevant stakeholder, A, B, or C, with a story that's connected to the last conversation they had with them.
yeah,
That is the essence of what we're talking about. The
yeah,
customer organization is the market, and the individual buyers in the organization or decision makers in the organization are the customers.
yeah.
And we have to be more relevant in the value story we tell to each of those individual people who each have a set of common care abouts and a set of unique care abouts. Same thing.
And Phil, you've hit on a really important thing on account-based marketing. It's taking all of these macro disciplines that we're talking about and bringing them down to an account level. And we see when it comes to account-based marketing, when marketing does these things well, it really makes a difference. Number one, what are the major care abouts of that account? Not
Yeah.
at an ethereal level, but at a
Yeah.
precise
Yeah,
level.
specific.
Number
Yeah.
two, how do we trigger engagement and with who? As Shakeel said, it's now selling into a committee of buyers, not just a buyer. Third is to create content journeys, specific buyer journeys. And
Yeah.
four is to create micro campaigns for that account. So it's taking all the macro now and bringing it down to these very specific campaigns.
Yeah. And then,
those who are right are seeing some
yeah.
unusual returns.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you've got the 80-20 rule where 80% of the business is coming from 20% of your clients, which I think, so that kind of makes sense. If 80% of your market's coming from existing accounts and they are your market, they're such an important source of sort of opportunity. And we all know that it's much easier to sell new stuff, to new things, solutions to existing customers than, to go for the net new, from completely uncharted kind of territory. And there's been some very interesting research done on the ability to sort of manage relationships in a much more structured way. But it's not an easy problem to solve. It's not,
Right.
with some companies, you've got very complex solutions. It's opportunity driven. You've got different stakeholders for the different types of opportunities that so you've got, global customers, you've got people in the decision-making process all over the world. You'll never get to see them. Yeah. Because, they're located in different territories.
Right.
So this is, I think, where marketing can really help sale. It becomes an extension, of the sales team. But like you were saying earlier, marketing sort of driving the feel, the tone, the insights, providing that kind of incremental support to the sales process. So yeah, I mean, this is I think how we're seeing it as well.
We have to remember that language of co-creation that we spend so much time teaching salespeople how to use with their customers.
Yeah.
We have to bring that culture of co-creation inside the organization with marketing and sales. We know based on past behavior, if marketing comes out with something, the first thing sales is going to say is, "Oh, here we go again. That's not going to be relevant."
Yeah, that's right.
And every time that sales comes up with a customer insight that's an obstacle, marketing will, "Oh, there they go again, complaining about how the thing we did for them isn't working. It's just an excuse."
Yeah.
The only way to overcome that is to start working collaboratively from the beginning to define the problem together.
Yeah.
Then we're both solving the same problem. So I think that's a human nature thing, but absolutely requires a really confident, competent, both marketing leader and sales leader to practice that kind of collaboration at the highest levels first.
And what's fun, Phil, is when we're working with clients, when you can't tell who the salespeople are and who the marketing people are, you know they're doing something right.
Yeah.
When you literally, they're talking the same language. And that's rare, by the way.
Yeah.
But that's when it's fun, when you
And
really.
I've seen it. I've seen it when we go into a training room and we're getting to know all the people. And I've been in the room where there's a marketing person in the room, or maybe two of them, and I don't find out until later, based on looking at their title, that they
Right.
were actually not a salesperson; they were a marketing person. I have that same epiphany, Phil. They're doing something right.
Exactly. Exactly.
Can I just come back to some of the questions we looked at just to
Yeah.
check that we've covered off the questions? So I think we've talked about how sellers and marketers can practically work together. We've talked about the frameworks, and I think we've talked about account-based marketing. I mean, that's obviously part of the account planning process should be marketing. I guess in those kind of conversations, as well as, of course, as you advocate the customer being involved. Third box thinking is something that, of course, have originated from your thought framework, Phil, and we, as you know, we love it as well. How do you think third box thinking is going to help marketing? Is that one of the frameworks you were talking about?
Well, it is. It's the central framework that reverses the polarity of the thinking that Shakeel started at the beginning of this conversation. So for those who don't know third box thinking, here it is in 5 seconds. 3 boxes. Box 1 is you, the supplier. Box 2 is your customer. Box 3 is their customer. Okay. Nothing mystical. But where the magic lies is starting in the third box and thinking backwards and asking, why does their customer do business with your customer? What's the value proposition, and how can you elevate your customer's ability to serve their customer? That's where the magic begins. And that's where the polarity gets shifted back to what Shakeel started the discussion with at the beginning of this podcast. So it's what makes it real. And I know it sounds simple, but once you get that into your mindset, and once you get that into your culture, it changes everything.
Yeah.
Because
here's the beauty of the model. The beauty of the model is 3 boxes doesn't have to be 3 boxes, right?
Exactly.
You insert boxes to increase the understanding of the players in the value chain. And the most beautiful thing that happened, and Phil and I were together with this client, is we did one session where marketing was actually the first box.
Exactly.
Okay.
And sales is the box next. The customer that they both serve together is the third box. And then you layer in a fourth box, which is the end customer. Now you're getting marketing literally aligned in the same line. And you're starting at the end customer, working backwards, including what our sales care about, to marketing. Okay, what do we bring to the whole equation? That's a very really quick, easy, simple, magical, with the right kind of spirit and tone and respect in the conversation of getting people along the same path.
I think one final thing to cover, perhaps before we finish this podcast, we can always have another one, I'm sure, but is that, I found it quite interesting since doing the doctorate, Phil, I'm sure you did as well, when you start to look at, the relationship, I suppose even at board level, between marketing and sales, and what's more important? Is sales a subset of marketing, or is marketing a subset of sales? And certainly at an academic level, you've got this huge volume of research driven out of marketing, and a couple of very small journals that focus on sales. So this, I think what we've talked about is that sales and marketing need to work hand in hand. It's not that one is more dominant than the other. But I just wondered, what you'd like to comment on what I've just shared with you. Maybe it's different in America, but
it's not, because human nature has no borders. Okay.
Okay.
And human nature is the same everywhere. And I go back to what Shakeel opened up with, is the the challenge of marketing right now is reversing the mindset that has built marketing for the last 50 years.
Yeah.
And speaking of quotations, one of my favorite quotations is one that says, until you understand life is not about you, it'll never make sense. Okay. That's
Yeah.
not only a good personal ethos, but it's also a good sales and marketing ethos. It's not about you. It's about what your customer sees.
Yeah.
And as you know, our company's built on 5 words: them, us, fit, proof, next.
Yeah.
The problem is most companies start with us instead of them.
Yeah.
And marketing needs to be the keeper and getting people off the us bus and making sure they're on the them bus first. And it sounds so simple, but it is so rare.
Yeah. I'm gonna like years ago, I worked in a company where there was this battle about who led. Did sales lead because they're close to the customer? Does marketing lead because they've got the budget first of all, and they drive the messaging for the entire company? And then we had a professor of strategic marketing brought in, and that professor of strategic marketing was actually brought in by a senior VP of sales.
Okay.
Right? The senior VP of sales brought in this professor of marketing. Yeah, it was interesting. It was really interesting. And also personal relationship stuff that was involved.
Okay.
Like good, like they trusted each other. But
Yeah.
this VP of this professor of strategic marketing came in, and right on day one, he put a copy of the brand new book he just published on the desk of each person that was in that planning session. And the title of the book, Marketing Driven, it's marketing led, sales driven.
Yes.
Dr. AJ Searcy,
Okay.
marketing led, sales driven. That senior VP of sales that invited this professor in, can you imagine how he felt in that moment?
Yeah.
But what the beauty is that if you have a culture where that it's marketing led, it fine, don't change that.
Yeah.
If you have a culture that is driven by sales, fine, let's understand that why it's sales driven because of insights from the market or whatever the reason may be. But here's the beauty of linking something we've all learned about in our own leadership careers.
Yes.
Marketing may lead, but is it servant leadership?
Yeah.
If you're leading, no problem. But
Yeah.
lead with an approach that's a servant leader, we're going to have no issues because that is the type of leadership we're talking about.
And I think the title to that book is probably the best answer to your question. Excuse me, the smoke alarm just went off. Is the best answer to your question, marketing led and sales driven. It's not an either or, it's a both and.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Well, I'm very glad we finished off on that because I think it's sort of it's a very good sort of summary of the perhaps potential disconnects between sales and marketing, but actually the importance of them both working together. So unless there's anything else that we haven't covered, Phil, Shakeel, it's been a wonderful conversation with you both.
Enjoyed it.
Over the last hour.
Thank you, Phil. I'm going to just close with actually a piece that came from a client in a recent RFP that we responded to that we'll be working with. And they had 4 bullets on their first slide.
Yeah.
And I think this is an example of higher order thinking. And it said, the way we think is number 1, sales and marketing co-diagnose customer priorities. Number 1.
Right.
Number 2, we co-create insight-led messaging.
Right.
Number 3, we co-orchestrate customer engagement. And number 4, we co-measure customer impact. And that's I think there's 4 beautiful, concise kind of summary bullets that align with that them us fit proof. Now that's an example of somebody who really gets it.
Yeah. Brilliant.